This Torah class is brought to you by TorahAnytime.com.
What Parsha are we on?
Okay, good morning, Rabbi. So we're learning Sefer Nechemia, Parak Zayin, Pasuk Samach Gimel, and we're listing the names of all the people who returned to Eretz Yisrael in the second wave. The first wave of people came up. The first time permission was granted, and now Nechemia is listing and enumerating the people that returned in this on this second occasion. On the second occasion, and apparently the fact that the Navi records the names of all these people means that it's very significant and very valuable in the eyes of Hashem that these people are returning to Eretz Yisrael. Their chiba for Eretz Yisrael, and their chiba to return to Hashem in Eretz Yisrael is so dear to Hashem that they're recorded not only once in Sefer Ezra, but again here in Sefer Nechemia. Now, we mentioned the names of many of the Jews who returned. We even, in Pasuk Samach Aleph, we mentioned the names of the illegitimate of descent. Now we're going to mention some Kohanim who were questionable. Umin ha-Kohanim, and from the Kohanim, B'nai Chavaya, the children of Chavaya, B'nai HaKoitz, the children of HaKoitz, B'nai Barzilai, the descendants of Barzilai, Asher Lakach mi benois Barzilai. Now these descendants of Barzilai were not direct descendants, ben achar ben, but rather these descendants of Barzilai came from the son-in-law of Barzilai. In other words, Barzilai's son-in-law adopted his name, and thereby his descendants, the descendants of the son-in-law of Barzilai, they called themselves Bnei Barzilai, even though they were from Barzilai's daughter. Asher lakach mi benois Barzilai hagaladi isha. They took from the daughters of Barzilai of Gilead a wife. Vayikari al shemam, and they assumed his name. Now the pasuk continues, and we'll read in a moment that these descendants of Barzilai were very questionable. Why were they questionable? The halacha is that a kohen is not allowed to marry a giyaras. Okay, a kohen is not allowed to marry a convert. Not only that. Not only can a kohen cannot marry someone who on both sides descends from gerim. Someone who both their father and mother are a ger, even though the daughter is not a ger, is not a giyaras, nevertheless, she cannot marry a kohen.
Well, how many girls?
If on both sides the parents were a giyaras, it seems like you can't marry into kahuna. Now, the Bnei Barzilai himself was a ger. Barzilai was a ger. No problem. But if his wife was a regular Yisraelis, then Kohanim could marry their daughters. Because as long as one parent was a natural born Jew, then Kohanim could marry the descendant. However, it was questionable whether Barzilai's wife was a Yisraelis or a Giyaris. They couldn't find the document, couldn't find the papers. They couldn't produce the papers. The Malbim in Sefer Ezra adds that there was another family of Yisraelim also by the name of Bnei Barzilai. So the Kohanim, who were the Bnei Barzilai, had to prove that they were aware that they were Kohanim throughout their ages and never violated the canon of Kahuna, because we were afraid maybe they thought they were from the Yisraelim of Barzilai and they violated certain prohibitions Kohanim can't. So therefore we needed to prove the authenticity of the Bnei Barzilai. And says the Navi, says the Pasuk, Eila Pasuk Samach Bigshu Ksavam, they searched for their document, Hamas Yachsim, that showed their lineage, V'loi Nimtza, they couldn't find it. Vayegoyalu min kahuna, and therefore they were banned from kahuna. They were banned because they could not produce the document. Okay, so now here we have people who maintain their kohanim, but nevertheless their lineage is somewhat questionable. So you say, what's the big deal? So what? We're going to call them up for an aliyah? They're not making a bracha levatala. Worst comes to worst, they're not a kohen. Yisrael could also get the first aliyah. The avodah. What do we write? So what are we going to let them do? Are we going to let them do the avodah? Are we going to let them eat kachim? Only a kohen could eat kachim. Are we going to let them eat truma? Right? If a zar eats truma, the punishment is misa b'dei shamayim. So now the question is, what do we do with the questionable kohanim? So the pasuk continues. Pasuk Samachay, Vayomer ha-tirshasa lohem. The tirshasa said to them. Who's the tirshasa? Nechemia. Why is he called tirshasa? He's called tirshasa lashon of hitir shasa, permitting drink. That the Chachamim permitted him to drink wine that was touched by a guy. Normally, good wine that's touched by a guy, you can't drink. But since he was the chamberlain of the king, and whenever anyone who serves a king wine, he has to drink the wine first, right? That's standard protocol. That someone who brings wine to a king, we say, yeah, it's so good, you taste some first, then make sure it's not poisonous. So now the thing is that this wine was handled by Goyim. So if Nechemia is going to serve as the king's chamberlain, he has to violate Yayin Stam Yenam. So the Chachamim allowed him to drink Stam Yenam. Why? Because his life was on the line. Because if he's not going to drink it, they're going to kill him. So the question is, you don't need a heter to drink Stam Yenam when your life is on the line. Everybody knows that every mitzvah in the Torah is suspended b'malkim pikuach nefesh. So what's the big deal? Oh, he's the guy that we gave him a heter to drink the wine. Anyone under those circumstances would be given such a heter. It's not a special thing for Nechemia. So they answer like this. They answer, once you're in the situation where somebody puts a gun to your head and says, drink the wine, otherwise we're going to kill you, of course you have to drink the wine. But let's say you're interviewing for a job. Let's say you're looking for a job. Are you allowed to look for a job as a chamberlain for a king? Because you're putting yourself in a situation where you're going to have to drink the wine. Yeah, but I'll be allowed to because my life will be on the line. Who told you to take that job? Be a garbage man. Be an accountant. Do whatever. Be a rabbi even. Right? But who told you? You say, I'll have a heter. No. A heter is all... People think, yeah, I'll do it, and once I'm in the matzav, once I'm in the situation, I have a heter. Yeah, that's once you're in the situation, but you're not to put yourself. That's called tchilasai b'pshia v'saifa b'oines. You're right, once you're in the matzav, I have a heter. Right? It's like, if I went to a wedding, once I'm there already, I have a heter to do it. Yeah, but who told you you're allowed to go in the first place? So the answer is, they gave him a heter to take the job initially, because the Chachamim saw this was important to Klal Yisrael that he take this job. So listen carefully to what Nechemia told them. Nechemia says to them, Vayomer ha-tirshasa lohem, asher lo yoichlu mi kodesh HaKadoshim. You can't eat from kodesh HaKadoshim ad amoid ha-kohen le'urim v'tumim, until the Kohanim once again have the Urim Tumim. We know in the second Beis Hamikdash, the Urim Tumim was one of the 5 things that was not present in the second Beis Hamikdash, that was present in the first Beis Hamikdash. What were the 5 things that were present by Bayis Rishon and not by Bayis Sheni? Urim Tumim, Eish min Hashemayim, Aron, Shechina, Ruach HaKodesh. Those are the 5 things. So there was no Urim V'Tumim at this point. If they had the Urim V'Tumim, all they have to do is, put in, hey, this guy, is he good for kahuna? Urim V'Tumim would say kosher, apostle, and so forth. But says Nechemia, until we regain the Urim V'Tumim, these Kohanim cannot eat mi Kodesh HaKadoshim. Now what is Kodesh HaKadoshim? What is this referring to? What is this referring to? Simply put, this refers to kachim, sacrificial parts. And what we're saying is that these kohanim cannot eat from kachim. Now, why are kachim called kodesh HaKadoshim? This is in contradistinction to truma. These kohanim will let them eat truma, and we won't let them eat kachim. Why not? Because we're using the great principle of chazaka. Chazaka says, whenever you don't know what to do, we leave things by status quo. So these questionable kohanim, what were they doing in Bavel? Now, is there truma in Bavel? Midrabanan, there's truma There's Truma in Bavel. So, what were they doing in Bavel? Were they eating Truma? Yeah, they're eating Truma? We don't know what to do with them. Status quo will allow them to continue eating Truma. But were they eating kachim in Bavel? No, there are no karbanos in Bavel. Oh, you weren't eating kachim? So you keep your status quo that you can't now assume the right to eat kachim.
In Bavel was separated Truma and gave the kachim.
In Bavel, they separated Truma midrabanan.
But we do also. But we don't give it to the Kohen.
But we don't separate Truma.
If something comes from Eretz Yisrael, we don't.
We do, but what about in Bavel? The Jews in Bavel, when the farmers in Bavel, they
did it.
They since Bavel was close to Eretz Yisrael, it was chayiv in Truma midrabanan. So therefore, like this, the pasuk, we're reading the pasuk this way. The pasuk says, "Vayomer hatershas Elohem asher lo yochlu mi kodesh hakadashim." They can't eat kodesh hakadashim, which we're translating as kachim, but they could eat truma. Now, why is kachim called kodesh hakadashim as opposed to truma? Because kachim is something that's kodesh from something that's already kodesh. The animal is kodesh; it's a carbon, and the parts of the animal is a kodesh from something that was already kadashim. But Truma is not Kodesh Kadashim. Truma is just one Kadosh. Truma comes from grain. The grain at first was secular. You're mafresh it, you made it Kodesh. So Truma is not Kodesh from Kodesh. So therefore the pasuk is read like this. Again, one more time. They can't eat Kodesh HaKadoshim, referring to Kodshim. Kodshim is called Kodesh HaKadoshim. It's something holy from something holy. But Truma they could eat. Why Truma they could eat? Because Chazaka. Chazaka says that status quo, they were eating Truma, they could continue to eat Truma. However, there's another way to read this. And that is, look carefully, that the Chachamim, that Nechemia said, they can't eat Truma and they can't eat Kachim. The word, Asher lo yochlu mi kodesh, kodesh refers to Truma, like the pasuk says, "V'chol zar lo yochal kodesh," referring to truma, and kadashim is referring to kachim, like the pasuk says, "Uvas ish kohen ki seichel he b'trumas hakadashim lo seichel." So we see kachim is referred to as kadashim. So therefore, the pasuk is saying, Nechemia says they can't eat kodesh, which is truma, and they can't eat kadashim, which is kachim. So the question is, so then what about status quo? I thought we say, well, since they were eating truma, we should continue to allow them to eat truma. Why don't we say chazaka, status quo? The answer is, listen carefully, they had status quo to eat truma, but what kind of truma? Truma in Bavel is midrabanan. So status quo will allow them now only to eat truma midrabanan. But now you want to go to Eretz Yisrael and eat truma d'oraisa? You never had a status quo to be able to eat Truma d'oraisa. So we'll allow you now, when you enter Eretz Yisrael, to eat something which is only Truma midrabanan, because that you had a status, you had a chazaka to eat. But we won't allow you to rise up and be mala and assume the ability to eat d'oraisa dika Truma. Okay.
I assume they were strict with Kohanim because they're going to do the avodah. Of course, we're not strict with Kohanim today.
Today is a different story. Even with duchening, we're not as... see, in those days, the fact that you didn't have a document, that was something fishy. Where's your document? Why don't you have a document? Today, it doesn't raise eyebrows why someone doesn't have a document. Nobody has documents. It's lost.
Was lost years ago.
Okay. So now, says the pasuk, what's the sum total of all the returnees? Kol hakol ke'echad. The whole congregation together. Arba ribai, 4 myriads, 40,000. Alpayim, 2,000. Shlashmeas v'shishim, 360. 42,360. How interesting, because that's the exact number it was given in Ezra. If you look in Sefer Ezra, In Parag Beis Pasuk Samach Daled, it says the same thing. Kol hakol ke'echad arba ribay alpayim shlosh me'os shishim. Now, how is it possible that the two returns have the exact same number of people? Plus, the details given in Sefer Nechemia are different than the details given in Sefer Ezra. In other words, if you count up all the families over here, if we were to count up all these families and add them up, you don't get 42,360. So, why, first of all, how is it possible that the number remained the same? And also, it doesn't add up. It does not add up to that amount. So, the Metzudas David explains that the total amount adds up. Yeah? The total amount, meaning like this. The Navi wants to maintain the same total by both, even though it was slightly different. In other words, the number in Sefer Ezra is 42,360. That same number is maintained over here, even though it was different. Because if you add up all the details, you get a different number. Now, why is that?
Why did they make it the same?
The answer is that, take a look in the Metzudas David. Metzudas David says, quoting the Seder Olam, that first of all, if you count up the names of all these families, you're missing about 13,000. So it's about 13,000 short of 42,360. So where are the extra 13,000 people? The answer is, you know where they are. They're not counted. We're only counting the Jews from Shevet Yehuda and Shevet Binyamin that returned. But we're not counting the names of the Jews from other Shvatim. 13,000 members of other Shvatim also went up, but they're not counted.
Why not?
There were more
Why not? Why were they not counted?
They didn't make it.
There were more Levium
Okay.
than the others. Isn't that odd? And especially many didn't come or couldn't come.
Now, again, the first coming up was in the second year of Koresh. The ones that went up with Zerubbabel, that was the first wave. This is the 20th year of the next king, Daryavesh, the son of Achashverosh. Nechemia came up. Now,
Okay. I don't have my thing with me, but
basically, the numbers of each family are different than the numbers given in Sefer Ezra. Sefer Ezra is talking about the first wave of returnees. Sefer Nechemia is talking about the second wave. So the details of the families are very different. But when we give the sum tally, we give the sum tally of the first wave. Because, as we're going to see, the continuation of this Sefer is going to be a continuation of what happened by the first wave. Now,
you mean in between? You mean continuation?
a continuation of what happened by the first wave.
You mean the years between Ezra and Nehemiah?
Well, now we have to investigate something very important, and that is, when did Ezra come up? Did Ezra come up with the first wave? Or did Ezra not come up with the first
He
wave?
was Zerubbabel.
Nechemia possibly was Zerubbabel.
Nehemiah was. So if he came, Zerubbabel came first, and Nehemiah came later. So isn't there something
Now, Rashi learns that this Parak Zayin, Pasuk Hey, speaks about Vayitin Elakai Bekir El Libi. Then Nechemia says, I gathered all the officials to find the yichus of all these Jews and established them on the proper yichus. Rashi says, on the words Ha'olam Barishayna, that this is a list of Jews that went up with Ezra the first time around. That means Rashi's opinion is that even though in Sefer Ezra is not mentioned until Parak Zayin, nevertheless, according to Rashi, Ezra returned the first time. In other words, if you were open up Sefer Ezra, which begins with the Jews that are returning, and it has a long list of the Jews that returned, many, many names are there, with the exception of Ezra. Ezra's name does not appear until you get to Parak Zayin, where it says, Ezra came up Mibavel. And Rashi and the Gemara Masechta Megillah explains that Ezra did not return originally. Right? As long as his Rebbe Baruch was alive, Ezra did not return, from which the Gemara derives that Gadol Talmud Torah Yoser Mi Binyan Beis HaMikdash. So the opinion of the Gemara is that Ezra did not return the first time. However, Rashi's opinion in Nechemia Zayin Hey is that Ezra not only returned the second time, he returned the first time as well. Not like the Gemara.
So the Gemara is saying that he didn't go up with the wave of Nefesh b'Nefesh. People went and he stayed above.
He didn't go back, yeah. Gemara says
he didn't go at all.
right, until
People
later.
went without a leader. Maybe it's Rubago.
The Gemara is just saying that when the first wave returned, Ezra did not return.
So who was the leader?
Zerubbabel. Now Zerubbabel, according to the Gemara in Sanhedrin,
So that's
is Nechemia.
So how could that be?
That means Nechemia came twice.
I mean, he came twice.
He went up, and then possibly when Koresh put a halt on the construction of the Beis HaMikdash, so then he went back. But according to Rashi's opinion, Ezra went also with the first wave. That means also Ezra went twice, according to Rashi. Okay. So what is it? Let's continue here. Pasuk Samach Zayin. Now we're going to list the servants that came. Milvad Avdeim, besides their servants, V'yam Hoseim, and their maidservants. Eila, these, Shiva Salafim, Shlosh Meos, Shloshim V'Shiva.
Why must we know how many servants?
7,373. And 37. In other words, Hashem, it's dear to Hashem, even the augmented, even the ancillary people who are returning together with the wave. For Lahem Meshirim, and they had with them singers, Umeshairos, and female singers, Masayim v'Arbaim v'Chamisha, 245.
Female singers. Interesting.
Susayim, horses, Shvameos, Shloshim Meshisha, 736. Perdayim, mules, Masayim Arbam v'Chamisha, 245. Gemalim, Arbameh Shloshim v'Chamisha, 435. Chamoirim, Sheshas Alafim, Shvameos v'Esrim. The last time the Torah counted donkeys and mules, that was in, when Yaakov Avinu sent a gift to Yitzchak, to Esav.
They didn't count donkeys and mules the first time with Ezra.
Yeah, they did.
They did.
Yeah, these psukim are identical in Ezra, Parak Beis, in Parak Beis. Umiktsas Rashi Havos, and some of the family heads, Nasnu LaMalacha, donated to the labor. Hater Shasa, and Nechemia personally, Nasan La'otzar, he donated to the treasury. Zahav Dar Kamoinim Elef, 1,000 golden darkamonim. Mizrakos chamishim, 50 basins. Kasnos Kohanim, and tunics of Kohanim, shloshim chamesh meyos, 530. Umei Rashi Ha'avai, some of the family has nasnu la'otzar hamlacha, donated to the labor. Zahav darkamonim shtei ribos, 2 myriad of golden darkamonim, 20,000 golden darkamonim. The chesef monim alpayim u'masayim, 2,200 kesef money. V'asher nosnu she'eres ha'am, and what the rest of the people give. Now in Sefer Ezra, it does not talk about any additional donations, but here it does speak about additional donations. This is not mentioned. Very interesting. This is not mentioned in Sefer Ezra. So the Malbim explains, why is that? Why is that? The Malbim says that in this Nidava, there's a stira between the number given here and the number given in Ezra. Because over there it says the gold that they gave was 6 myriads, 61,000. And here the Rashi Avos only gave 2 myriads. And here it talks about Nechemia's donation, and Ezra doesn't talk about Nechemia's donation. Now, it would appear, though, that Nechemia did go with the first wave. So therefore, it says the Malbim, you have to say there were 2 donations. That there was a donation by the first wave, there was a donation by the second wave, and by this donation of the second wave, the Jews decided to add to that donation. That's what you have in Pasuk Ayin Beis. Va'asher nosnu she'eres ha'am, what the rest of the people give. Zahav darkamonim shtei ribay, 2 myriad of golden darkamonim, v'chesef manim alpayim, 2,000 kesef maneh, v'chasnos kohanim shishim v'sheva, and tunics of the kohanim 67. In other words, the Malbim points out that the donations listed over here are different than the ones listed in Ezra. There it says they gave Zahav darkamonim sheish ribais va'elef v'chesem manu chamesh esavim v'chasnos kohanim meya. That's what the Rashi Ha'avos gave. Here, it says they gave much less. So therefore the Malbim says there must have been two different donations. Okay. Now the next pasuk we'll read it, but we'll explain further, God willing, next time. We'll meet next time during Asar Simei Tshuva, Tuesday morning Asar Simei Tshuva.
Why not the next Tuesday?
Next Tuesday is Erev Rosh Hashanah.
Wednesday is there.
Wednesday.
Oh. Okay, so then next week, yeah. So the pasuk says like that: Vayeshva Kohanim b'Halavim b'Hashorim b'Hameshorim umin ha'am v'Hanasinim v'Chal Yisrael b'Areim. It says the Kohanim and the Leviim returned, the Hashorim and the gatekeepers, the Hameshorim the singers, umin ha'am, and from the people, v'Hanasinim v'Chal Yisrael b'Areim, and all the Jews in their cities. Vayiga HaChodesh Hashvi, and the 7th month reached. Uvnei Yisrael be'areim, and the Bnei Yisrael are in their cities. Now, the question is, that if this is the return of the second wave, this pasuk is said exactly in Sefer Ezra by the first wave. The pasuk there says, "Vayishva Kohanim, v'alavim min ha'am v'amsham Hashem ha'nesinim ba'areim v'choyso ba'areim, vayiga ha'chodesh hashvi v'meiso ba'areim." So the question is, was it just a coincidence that this return was also in the 7th month, the second return? Or is this going back to the first return? So that we'll have to explain in Mitzvah Hashem further next time. Okay?
You've just experienced another Torah class brought to you by TorahAnytime.com.